Okay, so I was about 14 at the time, and I grew up pretty poor. My mother at this time really was slowly disappearing from my life, to where I was later on homeless. But at this time, she was still around me, and we were sleeping on the kitchen floor, as it was the comfiest floor in the house. I regularly get night terrors and sleep paralysis, but this time it felt different. I woke up immediately feeling like I was being watched. I found it hard to breathe. I was just so terrified. Everything in my mind told me not to open my eyes, but being as curious as I am, I opened them anyways. What I saw, I'll never forget. I saw this creature. It looked to be about 7 feet tall, but somehow fit into our small apartment hallway. Its bones were all deformed and broken, but it didn't look like it was in any pain. At this point, I had sat up and started to move backwards, away from this thing. It was all white and had hair everywhere. There was something draining from its mouth, and when it would move nearer to me, I could hear this thing's bone cracking. I closed my eyes, hoping it would go away, but I could still hear it. I started actually screaming, and my mother woke up and yelled at me for screaming. But I told her what had happened, and when I opened my eyes, it was gone. My mother continues to insist I'm lying, but I swear what I saw that night was real, and it was not human. This story takes place in the deserts of Arizona. Me and my dad are on a camping trip with the rest of our family, but thanks to the size of the family, we had to take 2 cars. 1 car for the boys and 1 for the girls. I had 3 sisters, but I was the only boy. 3 hours later, and nightfall approaches, making it harder to drive with only 1 headlight working. So my dad decides we should stop and camp there for the night. I said I was down, as long as we could sleep in the car. Not really camping, but if you had to choose between a car seat and the ground, then we'll talk. Anyway, he agreed. So we drove off the road and onto the sand with cactus as far as the eye can see. We both began our descent into slumber. Only I couldn't, as I was a bit of an insomniac, which I was fine with. It just meant I could look up at the night sky. But then I heard a blood-curdling screech of some kind of humanoid howling at the vast emptiness of the desert. At first, I thought it was a coyote. But coyotes don't sound like that. Frozen solid, I look out the window to see a tall, lanky creature standing on all 4s of its extremely long, unnatural appendices. At first glance, it would have just blended in with the cacti surrounding the area, with its seemingly prickly skin. But I didn't just peek and look away. I was flat out staring at it until my eyes locked with its 2 small white dots, was all I could see. I'm pooping bricks at this point, but bricks turn to boulders as it full out charges at the small car, which could easily be flipped with very little effort. I guess all that commotion woke up my dad, because before I knew it, we're driving off of the sand back onto the road, flooring it the whole way, only to get the back window smashed in with the creature slamming its 2-fingered hand in the glass screen, sending shards everywhere, even into its own hand. It didn't follow us for much longer, as it had glass shrapnel in its hand. It started to slow down and limp away, leaving blood marks on the back door. We kept driving without looking back, fearing to see it again. Eventually, we had to stop as we caught up with the rest of the family, and we all shared the same expressions on our face and the look of terror glued on. That day is one I'll never forget. My best friend, I'll call her T, and I, L, used to explore the woods around her elementary school when we were just teenagers. There were sidewalk trails around the grounds and play areas, so people were often around. Children playing, dogs being walked, joggers and bikers, like a mini park at times. The day I'm telling you about was different. It was quiet. No one was out. It was cloudy, damp and dark, even with it being early afternoon. But we wanted to go out anyway. We were restless kids. Adventure was totally our middle names. With our backpacks of water bottles and sketchbooks in tow, we cut through the school ground, crossed the creek into the woods. We climbed a slate wall to get into a small hill, dense with trees and undergrowth. The creek was low, so we were able to see the banks through it. Since it was summer, you couldn't walk along them unless you wanted to guarantee an hour picking ticks off your leg. So, we continue upwards. The top of the hill was maybe 12 feet wide once it leveled out. A steep drop down the creek that looped around the hill on all three sides. We snaked around the trees until we came to the edge, which was mostly a clearing. I walked back along the edge, T warning me to be careful because the dirt was loose and she didn't want me to fall. Taking her warning, I held onto some trees and continued to look over the edge when I stopped cold in my tracks. 10 feet below me, floating in the relatively calm creek water, was a creature. Bigger than a house cat, smaller than a dog, small head, huge paws, and pointy ears, with a relatively long tail, completely skinned with no eyes. I had to take a second look. What? I turned around to find T a few yards away, looking out into where our creek meets a larger creek. Hey, T? I had to repeat twice because my voice caught in my throat. Come here. T trotted over warily, probably seeing the confusion in my face. Without saying a word, I pointed down into the water, the creature still floating lifeless. What? She whispered. What is that? I shrugged. To hell if I knew. It was huge but looked too much like a cat. Surely this was just some cruel animal abuse case, right? L, over here. T's voice was dark and scared. She had walked a few feet ahead of me, following the edge of the hill. Down in the creek were 3 more of these things, varying ever so slightly in size, but all skinned and not proportioned at all like the cats we both were beginning to lose hope that they were. As we walked along the edge, looking for more, we began to notice the mood in the woods had changed. It was quieter. The wind stopped blowing. No birds were chirping or flying around. The water had even become quieter as it flowed over the rocks. We counted 7 total. 7 creatures skinned and dead, 1 without eyes, a few missing paws and tails. The weirdest part being none of them with any ounce of decay on them. I want a closer look. I have to know what these are, I said. T giving me a look and said that she was thinking about it. I didn't hear you say that. But she was also curious. As we made our way back down, we increasingly began to feel like we were being watched, but we pressed on. We made our way through the creek in the direction of the corpses. I'm sure they were right here, I whispered to myself. L! T shouted behind me and grabbed my arm, stopping my next step, which would have been on one of the corpses. 8. A chill went up my spine. I had never felt an emotion as sickening as this in my life. They weren't hairless. They were definitely skinned. No decay. Some missing pieces. We eventually got too freaked out and ran, running faster back towards the school because it felt like we were being glared at and followed. We ran all the way home. We went back the next day, and they were all gone. They didn't wash away because there was no reason for the waters to rise so much to take them. To this day, 5 years later, we still get creeped out when we think about it, and we have never found any answers as to what creature did this. For some background info, I am an 18-year-old male. I live with my dad and 2 siblings and my 2 dogs. Poppy, a black Labrador, cross Staffy, and Missy. Right now, I am on summer break from college, and my mental health hasn't been very good at all. Every night, I have nightmares and wake up several times a night. But this time was different. I had a dream that I was trying to sleep in my bed, but something woke me up. My bedroom door creaked open. Something big and demonic slouched down and entered my room. This creature was tall, with black fur and a white face. It looked like a mixed dog with human. Surprisingly, all I did in my dream was turn away and pull the blanket over my ear, but I could still see the creature as if it had eyes in the back of my head. The creature turned and left my bedroom. I assume it lost interest because it thought I had. As soon as the creature left my bedroom, I woke up. I was spooked and thankful that it was a dream, but then I looked at my door and saw that it was open. I always make sure to keep my door closed, and my door is extremely stiff. You have to kick it to open it. This happened about an hour ago. It is now 6 a.m. I don't really know what this was, but I will update this if anything else happens. I would appreciate any explanation or theories anybody could offer